Hey everybody. Hey Chatteroony, how we doing? Bad. I was expecting bad. I was expecting bad feelings. Chat. Let me grab some stuff actually. Hold on. No, we can just start. We can start. So if you've never seen a Box Peak Q&A, I'm going to show you a couple things first, just some behind the scenes stuff, and then I would take your questions. With two rules: don't you chatteroony us. Let me show you some things. I'm going to have to switch to this camera. Welcome to my apartment. I'm not sure if these things will show on cam, but I think it's pretty clear how. By the way, weird tone for the Q&A this week, right? Because like this episode is so sad. This episode makes me cry for real. Like even like when I returned to it last night, I was like, Peak Rep 12, no. Like I'm with you. You know what I mean? Like it's intentionally sad. I'm in a bad mood too. Anyway, so like you can tell these things are inverted. So that one whole shot, we're just like, maybe we can team up. I know the others feel the same way I do. You know, that whole thing. That was the trusty old DJ Hero record turntable, and just some drawings like this. I couldn't find the one that's like a snowflake. I couldn't find the cutout Peak Ref 12. I think because like I put it in a good spot because it's so delicate, but like the spot was too good. I can't find it. So I had to like, that thing was tough. That thing was tough to cut out, but I'm happy with the effect. The thing I'm like most proud of from this episode is this right here. It's like a hand, right? It's got little fingers on it, right? And it actually holds a piece of paper. How sick is that? And like the paper I had to make of actually like lighter paper than I do the hands. So it's actually like, good luck, Jordy. Huh. They must send those to everyone. I really like that. And what I was really stoked for, and it doesn't show up at all in the show, is that I was planning on you being able to see through the paper a bit. Still blown out. I was planning on you be able to see through the paper, and then you can see the fingers beneath the paper, and it's just like, oh, that's a real hand. I can in real life, but it doesn't really show up on cam too much. And then I just wanted to show off the other poster for the World Tournament that was held at Jolly Jolly Island. Because I don't think we've ever said Jolly Jolly Island out loud. And this was the one time you're going to see it. However, it was just too far out of the shot. Couldn't see that poster. Yeah, so those are the two World Tournaments. Jolly Jolly is now canon, officially. Well, it's not. Didn't make it in the ep, so it's not officially canon. Okay. Let me go in here. Chat, we got two rules for the Q&A. Rule number 1, keep it about Box Peak. Don't ask me when I'm going to get a new pair of glasses. Rule number 2, don't ask about future episodes. There's only one left. But don't ask me about it. Cool. The easiest way for me to see your question is to put @EasyAllies in the chat. Because it highlights it for me and makes it much easier for me to find. Because basically what I just do is I pull questions as I see them. Is Too Quiet from Jolly Jolly Island? No, I feel like he's probably from Let's Go. How dare you? Got a couple of how dare yous. Why? How dare you? Sure. Oh yeah, let me pull up the episode. Someone's asking if the title scrolls the wrong way. I guess we'll see. Oh, this was tricky too. The top of that shot is actually faked. I put two shots together to make that one happen. And it's obviously playing in reverse. Which is why it like comes out so janky, but it's just Box Peak jank. I so leading up to this episode, we're at episode 9. Everyone has made a sacrifice for Box Peak, right? Like everyone's done something for Box Peak because they love Box Peak. And that's the core of it. It's always because they love Box Peak. That is why they're making this decision. So like, I never wanted to make a show where anyone died, for real. I don't know if SD self-destruct counts as a death. I didn't see it pop up in chat, but like, to me, I always liked this idea this whole time of this. Episode 6 exists so episode 9 can happen, basically, right? You have this fear for Peak Ref 12. You're happy for it, but you know that there's a danger there. And I think that there's some fun stuff in between the episodes where like you kind of forget about it. You know what I mean? You hear about Peak Ref 12 making jokes and it's like, okay, well, maybe things will work out fine. But no, I like having this unease, and I like it. I don't know. I like it being Peak Ref 12's choice. No, I think they always scroll left to right. I think that was correct. Are they getting older? It's still the same year. It's still the year 202. Months are passing by, but they're not getting much older. If season 1 of Box Peak was about love, would you say season 2 is about hate? No, season 2 is about love. If it has human motions, it's alive, so it did die. Oh, fine. For the chicken tender song, did you write Kazomi be half a second behind, or is that Amanda adding that touch? Oh, yeah, I mean, you know, we recorded all 3 of those at different times, and we did 3 different takes. I think the script just says they walk in cheering about chicken tenders. I should have grabbed the script. No, I put Kazomi a half second behind because I thought it was funny. I like it. Was the Peak Ref's creator trying to protect the Peak Refs with the orange juice message? Yes. Yeah. When he says, don't get orange juice spilled on you, that means don't develop emotions. That means don't like Box Peak. Was the guy in the green jacket in the opening supposed to appear last episode? Yeah, that's Bomb Bomb Patchoff. Mm-hmm. The guy with the green hoodie and the brown hair is Bomb Bomb Patchoff, canonically. How important do you think just starting on a creative project is to the process? I have a blank page problem, feeling like I'm never ready to start. Malon, super, super important, right? I think people always advise to write down your worst ideas first. And I hear that. I get that. I am particularly poorly self-motivated. Boxpeak exists because it's Patreon funded, frankly, right? Like I wouldn't have done any of this on my own. Just like, hey, I just wanted to work on this thing. I just thought this would be fun. No, I mean, like this is all exterior motivation. And so I think that's part of it too. Like I can't advise anybody on how to get a project started. Oh, I see we're behind the Twitch alerts. Okay, 1 second. Sorry about that, Whiffy Yapper. There you go. Does Kazomi's gun shoot googly eyes? Yes. Yeah. So she's got a googly eye gun that she would shoot at monsters back in the day to make them less scary. Peakref 12 was my favorite character. Was it yours too? I don't know. I like Victor a lot. But I definitely like Peakref 12. Did Ian protest when he read the script to episode 9? No, I think Ian got it. I think when Ian got to... Because Ian's always like, hey, Box Peak is good. And I'm like, Ian, shh. Like, don't say that. Because people will know something's up if Ian says Box Peak is good. I think this is when Ian knew why I casted him. You know what I mean? Because it's like, Peakref 12 is like a robot. It's like, you don't need... a talented voice actor to just be like, round 1, go! But it's like, oh, I get it. I get, like, when we get to option C, like Ian's delivery is so good. I'm like, oh, it always hits me really hard. It's funny. I mean, the music's sad for option C. I think you know immediately as it pops up, this is not going to happen. Revolt is not happening. It's too sad. At what point did you decide to give PCraft 12 an arc? Good question, right? Because I'm writing out the characters. I wonder at what point I considered PCraft 12 a character. To me, it plays into the funny sci-fi world, right? Boxpeak is always about the world of Boxpeak. And so I think it plays into that really well. And so probably pretty early, honestly. Did I draw actual eyes on the scary box? Yes. So I didn't want it to look like I designed the box to have googly eyes on it. So there are little tiny beady eyes. They're not like fully illustrated, but yeah, there is coloring behind the googly eyes. Why was option C not the right answer? PCraft 12 just knew it would not work out long term. It was a nice thing to think about, but it wasn't happening. Yeah, this was hard to cut out. This was super hard to cut out. Look at those circular lines. Why didn't PCraft 12 try to escape? PCraft 12 also was nervous about the impact it would have on the other PCrafts. Didn't want the sport of Boxpeak, the game of Boxpeak, to be in trouble. Do we know who won Jolly Jolly 201? I don't think we do. I don't think it's Takia Chill. I feel like she's like too new on the scene. So maybe she rose up over the last 2 years. We do know about Basie Courage. I'm going to assume Basie Courage did okay at 201. Are PCraft 12's thoughts close-up of a computer screen? Yeah, I think that's my laptop. Why didn't PCraft 12 try to escape? Oh, yeah. PCraft 12 knew. PCraft 12 was thinking through these things. I think sometimes you humor a thought that can't really be an option. You know what I mean? Fun fact, not really fun, but just to anybody who thinks PCraft 12 is alive, that's the actual PCraft 12 cut into bits. It's really sad. It made me so sad to do it, but I know that there was some sort of tangibility to it. You know what I mean? Like, just that being the actual PCraft 12 instead of just some little pieces of paper, to me makes it more impactful. That it's the actual size, that is the actual mass of the PCraft 12. Yeah. SD. Is the black and white section during option C visually inspired a little by Undertale battles? No, I think it was. I think I was making this episode around the time where I was watching Evangelion. And so there's a lot of points in which they'll just fill the screen with words. I think it was more inspired by that than anything. Just option C, revolt, that kind of thing. I feel worse knowing that. Yeah, you're supposed to feel bad. That's a sad thing. How old is Boxpeak? The president's husband's death was referenced as being a while ago, yet the creator doesn't seem terribly old. He created the PCrafts. He did not create the sport or design it or anything. He just made the PCrafts. The actual... let me make it so that loops automatically. I imagine... I don't remember. I have a year, actually. I made a timeline, which is stupid. You shouldn't do stuff like this. For Boxpeak. And it's like as old as the NFL. It's 100+ years old, I think. How do you know when to make a new sprite, like for Sleepy Jordy? Great question. Because I repeat a lot, and then suddenly there'll be like a new one for no reason. It's like, did you really need a new illustration there? Basically, if I have an old one that will work, I'll use it. I'll try to be economical about it. With Sleepy Jordy, the old one didn't have a body. He was just beneath a blanket. And so I couldn't make this shot work with Jordy on the floor, and so he had to be standing, and so I needed a new Jordy, and it was an opportunity to make a Box Peak Museum reference. And so that's that. Generally, if it's a fun opportunity for a new expression, I'll do it, but if there's something close to that already, I'll try to use an old one. Was it hard coming up with the designs for new characters? No, I think at this point even it's still fun, right? Like there's the lab assistant. Like that's just a fun drawing. His shirt is Takia Chill's logo, which is like her hairline. Like that's just fun stuff to do. So it's almost, excuse me with these coffee burps. It was almost like really, really fun to design new characters. Do you ever feel like you enjoy invoking negative emotions more than positive ones? I think negative emotions are more interesting, but obviously I still like to do comedies, right? I still like to make jokes. So I don't know. I like to do both. How often do you slip up while cutting and just have to trash the whole cutout? Very infrequently. I obviously slip up more coloring than cutting, and then sometimes I'll throw it out. More than anything, I slip up, like look at his hairline, you got a little, okay. With the pen, the inking is when I slip up the most, and that's when I have to throw out the most. If I like blot something, sometimes I'll keep it, but I've probably thrown out like 4 or 5 good drawings because I blotched it. Can we rewatch all 9 episodes together next week before episode 10? Yeah, that'll be like 2 hours, but I mean, why not? Why was the demon face hard to look at? Just very, very scary. Very, very scary. Do you ever take inspiration from Barry for your smash cut intros? Yeah. Yeah. I watched how Barry does it. Barry's got 2 versions of its intro, and that's why I do this one both too. I mean, probably actually at the end of season 2 probably has more than 2 versions, but sometimes Barry will have the lead up to the bam, 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 but sometimes I'll just go straight to it. And so yeah, it's like depending on what you need for that moment, I'll do both. And then this one, obviously, we have the drums, so you think the opening's coming, but 2 kids, well, one 12-year-old and one 14-year-old from another dimension, they're not going to know what the word expedite means. So I like that, the reality of that joke. How was it working with Don in this episode? So, this is funny. So when I was casting people out, I realized this is a Don-heavy episode. It's more based off characters, right? And so I didn't realize this would be such a Don-heavy episode. But also, I needed, like, there was like a lack of Don roles. And maybe I like overdid Don. Obviously, I love every Don performance, but like I have a recording of Brad doing the guy at the end too. I'm sorry, but like you have both. And apologies to Brad. I just had to go with the Don recording. Don's good. Don prepared. Don would look at the script the night before, kind of read through it, and have questions prepared for me. Like, hey, this thing. And then, like, just like, Don, actually, I have a completely different idea for that character. And he's like, okay. And then you roll with that. I noticed the colors used for the poster for Big Crush 203 are the same colors as the Kozomi Power Rangers. Coincidence? Is that from Moon? I question that observation. Because there are 4 Magna Soldiers, 5 if you include Ronar, and there are 6 crystals in the logo for the World Tournament, because there are 6 Great Islands that compete in the World Tournament. So I would say no coincidence. Looking at Don't Call Me Mama and now Box Peak, do you foresee that everything you do creatively in the future will have a dark air to it? Yes. Yes, this is probably the last time in my life I will get away with it, right? This is the last time in my life where people will think, maybe this is just a nice, pure show. I will never, ever, for the rest of my life, get that advantage again. In fact, the thing to surprise people going forward will be, oh, this is just a nice, pure show. I was expecting to get dark, and it didn't. That will be the surprise going forward. But no, I don't think people will ever trust me again. Hey, Kyle, no question. Just want to say that Box Peak is great, and you should be really proud of yourself. Thank you, Big Turkey. And congrats for making it through Thanksgiving. How'd you feel about Bloodworth's performance? Really good. We actually had to re-record this one, which sucked because he nailed it the first time, but we had like some recording issue. There's some ticks to it that I really, really like. Some demented freakazoid to stare into the eyes of my box. You know, just like there's some weird, like when an actor puts a little twist on a read that you couldn't possibly think of in your own imagination, it's really, really fun. There was one part, man, I should find the script because Squirt was a recording thing. He's just like, hey, I don't like what he like calls the kid. It may have just been kid even. He's like, can you call him Squirt? And I'm like, blood? Squirt is perfect. Did I ever consider doing a multiple episode tournament arc? I don't think that's what the show is about. I don't think I would do that with Box Speak. I have ideas. I have ideas for a multiple episode tournament arc, but yeah, I think that'd be weird. You seem to enjoy subverting expectations. Is that because you're a bit bored with simple plots of shows like Pokemon? No, I think it's more like I enjoy shows that do. You know what I mean? I wouldn't call it being bored with other shows, but just enjoying shows that do. Go wild. Explore things. Did you introduce the box with a scary face earlier in the story with the idea you would eventually draw it? How hard was it to design a scary box that lived up to unseen hype? So yeah, I definitely knew I was seeding it, right? Like build some expectation for the scary box later on. And what's funny is I had a really hard time determining how much of that match to show, right? At this point, it's not about the matches. And obviously people are getting frustrated that there's not a lot of box peek happening. And I almost thought of like, maybe I'll show the whole thing, have a wide shot and like do the thing and like actually show Jordy shooting the eyes onto the thing and making an action sequence. It actually didn't feel right. It's not like, hey, that's actually not the important part of this episode at all. So yeah, I didn't do that. I did want to show it though. I feel like I owe you that. I feel like you are owed seeing the face. And I think about that. I think about the joke that I just did 4 episodes in a row, right? Where you don't get to see what happened. It's funny. It's super out of focus, but you can see Kazomi's retainer case is still on the table next to the lamp. Yeah, I feel like why not have a little bit of fun and at least show the box? Because honestly, I think it's fun. Like drawing a nasty, scary monster face is super, super fun. You know what was super hard? Was that last shot of taping a wadded up ball to a hand. I was going to show you outtakes, but like it's just annoying. It took me so long. And what sucks about the shot that I ended up going with is there's not even a frame of the wadded ball in the air. So basically it could have just been this and then an empty hand. But I think you still get the impression a ball was flicked off. Even though you don't see it, I think the action is implied. I think you perceive it, you know what I mean? What did you do to get the doorknob shot? How does it turn? It's an actual, dude, this sucked. This sucked so much because it kept falling off. I got a bunch of outtakes of this too. So it's like a little circle, little paper circle. I had to hot glue basically a paper clip. You extend like a paper clip and then hot glue that and then like turn it from behind the door, and it just kept falling off. There was nothing to keep that on. Do you think Jordy would have known it was from Peak Ref 12 had he seen the message? I mean, that's a question I could turn to you too, but yeah. Yeah, I think he would have. I think they had a connection for sure. Were the callbacks to Scary Box Guy, Chegg Duff, and Chicken Tenders your way of bringing back fuzzy feelings about kinder episodes of Box Speak before the dark turn? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe not Chegg Duff so much, but yeah, that little Chicken Tenders, like, that was a new drawing, right? I easily could. I have enough Happy Jordies, but I wanted a custom Happy Jordy for the Chicken Tenders dance, which, by the way, 100% Amanda. I'm pretty sure the script just says, "Oh yeah, chicken tenders," and then she goes off on that line, and it's just so good, so fun. Is the last episode gonna be longer? It'll probably be around 10 minutes. How long did it take to film Peak Ref 12's option scenes? I think it was shorter than I expected. It was something I was really nervous about coming into the episode and figuring it all out. Figuring out how to visualize things, figuring out too much or too little. You know, I was like, do I have to draw Dr. Scrapper? Things like that, you know? Once it was figured out, once I knew what I wanted to do, I liked it. It didn't take too long. It was kind of a boom, boom, boom kind of situation. What's funny is I did have to, box speak is gain up because I want the paper to be as white as possible, right? I had to, for those scenes, make the darkness as dark as possible and turn the gain down. So I forgot to turn it back up for the final scene in the Peak Ref Hive. But I kind of like it. I kind of like that that scene's a little darker. It feels a little bit more like nighttime. It feels more like this. It's late at the office, you know what I mean? There's kind of vibes to that, and so I kind of like that. Why not tape it to the end of a stick and twist it? You're talking about the doorknob? This thing was like this tiny. What kind of tape are you using? Why do you think Box Peak Ref 12 didn't run and enjoy whatever time it had until the observers got him? Because it didn't want to raise suspicions. It didn't want to cause trouble for the other Peak Refs. How difficult was it conveying Jordy and Peak Ref 12's Fortress back in the day to paint his box, or was it officially approved box mod? Oh, sorry. I read two different questions at once because the chat scrolls really fast. All right, let me. Did the man with the scary box sneak into the basement fortress back in the day to paint his box? So this is really confusing to me how box mods work. Like, I think you have to go to a box mod place and they install it for you. So I do think that he painted his scary box in some sort of sketchy way. It's not an official box mod. The scary face is not an official box mod. How difficult was it conveying Jordy and Peak Ref's 12 progression and journey up to this point, given the culmination of both their stories? I made sure basically in every episode, except for Street Peaks, to have a little progression to Peak Ref 12, for sure. You know what I mean? Like, even Peak Ref 12 was making jokes, you know? Peak Ref saying yippee, like, keeping implying that the Peak Ref is becoming more and more invested in Box Peak and Jordy's adventure. And then Jordy's is easy, right? You just check in on his points or whatever, or the simple thing of just like, oh, she saw me beat those guys back at that city. Like back reference things that have clearly happened in showing how good he is and that he's got a reputation, things like that. So yeah, I think those were kind of easy. You kind of just toss lines in there. Do I have a version of the painted box without the googly eyes? No. There is, I mean, it is like, there's stuff behind it, but yeah, no, there's just the one. Fun fact is that box, the scary box, is actually one of the opening boxes in the opening sequence. There's the two guys in the park. Another fun fact, is the only time you ever see the floor in any Box Peak episodes is the opening. You see that park, and that's why I don't do it anymore, because it looks weird. And then, of course, the scene where you see PeakRef 12 SD'd. But yeah, I just reused one of those boxes and just slapped a scary face on the front of it. Learning to be economical, because it sucks to make boxes. Was having PeakRef 13 shake at the end of a way to show that it was also developing feelings? Oh, it was showing that it's scared, for sure. PeakRef 13 is scared. And I mean, PeakRef 13 was also the one who goes, you know, so. We know PeakRef 13 knows what was going on with PeakRef 12. Couldn't he just summon his box from the basement fortress to scrape the eyes off? Yeah, I wondered about that. I think no. I think so. Maybe that would be considered modifying his box. Yeah, sorry about this logic here. So I think, yeah, if you want to modify your box, it has to be done on official terms. And so that's why I had to sneak in the basement fortress, is that it'd be like an unofficial modification. Do you like when shows like South Park change their art style to be more realistic or anime for just one episode? And did you ever consider doing something like drastic like that for Box Peak? For sure, I thought about it during episode 7, right, where we go to Kazomi's dimension. But I thought like it would kind of imply that they are paper people. I know this is weird. I know this is really, really weird. I thought it would imply that this is the truth of what this looks like, when this is just really the lens that we look through the show of Box. My answer is that can be totally cool in other shows. I thought it would be weird for Box Peak. Does that device really just send a paper instead of print it? So I really like that. I like that the Zone paper machine, because it is, again, it's like, oh, I didn't realize I'm still playing music over there. So it was really all just a dumb device for PeakRef 12 to send a message to Jordy, right? It didn't feel right for PeakRef 12 to self-destruct without sending a message or without saying goodbye, right? So I was like, what can PeakRef 12 do as like a final message? And so sending a message to Jordy somehow, and then like, oh, but like they don't have like, they have phones clearly, or at least, well, Kazomi's is gone. I don't know. I was like, how can I visually represent that? And so that was like, oh, a piece of paper. And so all of that works backwards. And so like, oh, how do I seed the piece of paper? And then I create this funny, it's a lot like, to me, it's like the wristband that says like allowance. It's a lot of that Pokemon, like old sci-fi, like low grade sci-fi, where it's like, oh, this technology has been surpassed, but in this world it's futuristic. And I like that in a show like Box Peak, you can throw out a joke like that, right? The Zone paper machine, and you're not like, this is coming back later. I know he's just seeding something here. This machine is coming back later, because you can just accept it as a comedy show. It's like, oh, okay, that's just a thing. But really, the entire purpose of that whole first scene was to create the end of that scene. Well, also it's also like our inciting incident, right? It's also like, hey, let's go do this thing. So it serves both purposes. But yeah, the reason for the Zone paper machine is just to send a sad message from the PeakRef 12. But then why does CD scrap that paper without Jordy even seeing it? Oh, because CD genuinely thinks that was a stupid message that they send to everybody. How does Jordy's love of chicken tenders compare to my own? He loves chicken tenders more than any of us. Do the other PeakRefs communicate with each other besides basic data transfer, like the conversation between 12 and 13? Very rare. That's why 13, it was kind of weird, right? When it's just like, what? You have access to the same records I do. You know what I mean? Like, they don't talk to each other too much at all. How old did you say PeakRef as a sport was? I think like 100. It's never explicitly stated. But I just kind of get that impression. It's got this history behind it. How much influence did Chalk Zone have on Box Peak? 0. You think I'm watching Chalk Zone? I know it's a Nickelodeon cartoon. I know nothing of Chalk Zone. Nothing. What city is the Box Peak Museum in? I don't think it's ever explicitly stated. Something before Jacuzzi City, if we're drawing the map. Was CD intentionally written as more suspicious, or do we just see him through a new lens? Oh yeah, so the thumbnail for this week is when he's like, expedite the process. I want you to be suspicious of him. Okay, boomer. Chalk Zone, is that a Zoomer thing? Does pgraph experience time faster than people since he can compute so much data in so little time? Yes. Yeah. So right, that 0.6 seconds pgraph 12 going through the 3 options, that was absolutely poor pgraph calculating super fast. How much of a genius is CD? Is he CNC tier level? I think so. Yeah. CD is very good at box peak. Was the implication for when pgraph 12 had candy that all pgraphs carry decoy data at all times? No, they all have candy. They all have infant candy to make infants happy. Not sure why. There's just a sad infant nearby that needs candy. They go, just like, here you go. That was not the implication. It was not meant to be dummy data. Why didn't pgraph 12 mention Jordy to Takia when she asked if there was anyone special when it was enjoying Jordy's matches? Oh, I think we're talking implications. I think it is heavily implied there pgraph 12 is lying to Takia. Or at least is trying to hide Jordy from Takia. Because Takia knows it's lying. It kind of like she gets the impression it's lying, right? I don't know if I kept the line in or not, but if you're not going to be honest with us, go! And so, yeah, pgraph 12 likes Jordy. Is Kazomi's blaster actually lethal? No, it really just shoots googly eyes. That's all it does. Are the 6 chunks of the World Championship posters representative of the 6 major islands that compete? Yes. Yes. Was Scary Face Guy's first appearance the exact same piece of paper? Yes. Yeah. Same exact piece of paper. Again, being economical. This one's new. Is Takia the best pox peeker? Yeah, so I think when pgraph 12 said like, it's like not a lie, right? But it's like Jordy's pretty good. It implies that Jordy's got that potential. Did pgraph 12 actually get orange juice spilled on it, or was its programming different? No. No orange juice was spilled on any pgraph. That is the story that what's his name? Alvire Dumont. That was the story that Alvire came up with. Instead of saying, oh, clearly pgraph 12 loved box peak and that's why it self-destructed, he had to make something up on the spot, and that's where orange juice came from. And that's why I said, don't get orange juice spilled on you. It means don't love box peak. Because if anyone found out what happened with pgraph right there, be the end. The design and idea for the pgraph is great. Can you speak about your inspiration for them? Took me a long time. You can see basically in the trailer for season 2 how long it took to like get the design of a pgraph down. They used to be called grumpires. The first ever pgraph is called the Grumpire. And it was this idea of this grumpy robot. And so, yeah, actually, when you ask me, like, how long ago did I know the pgraph 12 would be a character? It was the Grumpire before anything. And yeah, it was an idea of, like, each island had its own Grumpire. And then they would have different names. So one was the Grampire, and, like, one was, oh, I forget. They all had weird names. And so it was this weird evolution of, like, man, I want it to be more robotic. I want it to be more friendly. I think what's weird is like pgraph 12 is so essential to episode 1, to the world of Box Peak. Just the hello, hey, Data, you know, do you want a profile? You know what I mean? And so I think that like it was created out of the need, right, for the tone and vibe of the world. Is the PeakRef R&D facility the same building as the corporate parts of BPO? Yep, same building. I think episode 6 says Box Peak headquarters in the lower third, and so that would be the only written indication that it's the same building. How many non-squeaky matches has CD had, and which Peak refs officiated them? Oh, are you implying that Peak Ref 12 would know? Peak Ref, this is before Peak Ref 12's activation. Right? Peak Ref 12 didn't have Joy until Jordy asked it if it enjoys Box Peak. Did you have trouble balancing how you handle foreshadowing for later episodes? Kinda. I mean, so what foreshadowing exists in this one? Obviously, episode 6 in its entirety is foreshadowing for this one. We see the guy with the scary box in episode 3. And I do remember people were like, hey, episode 3, there's just a lot going on, man. We introduced Takia Chill in episode 3, right? And so maybe I overdid it there for sure. But to me, like, I don't like to think of it as foreshadowing. I like to think of it as like growing my monsters, like planting the seeds in the monster and letting it grow. And so you can't have the monster here if you didn't plant the seed here, basically. When registering a Box Peak account, do the players have to use their real names? I wonder. I wonder. That would explain why CD is still CD Romanicello, right? Do violent crimes happen in this world? Is violence forbidden only among the Fangs, or do normal crimes happen like in our world? I don't think they happen. I don't think they happen too much. Kind of like Pokemon. It's like, in Pokemon, there's never just somebody with a gun holding up another person, you know? So it's that kind of thing. It's like, I want to make a world like that. Is the blue-haired guy actually known for spilling orange juice? I assumed it happened once. I think it happened once, and not even on a Peak Ref. But yeah, he's a scapegoat for sure. Is Peak Ref 12 the first to develop emotions? Heck yeah. One episode of Pokemon had a gun? Yeah, and they censored it in the US. And it was not a guy holding up another guy for money. Would you consider putting together a panel to do a spoiler mode for Box Peak when it finishes? It would be too self-serving. We're gonna go all out next Friday. After next Friday, you will hear everything you've ever needed to hear about Box Peak. How many points does Scary Box Guy have? Sorry, I forgot the name. He never has a name. Oh, he does have a name. Competitor. Oh, I forget. I even forget his name. It's something silly. He lost 80k and doesn't seem phased at all. Yeah, he's pretty mad. He's pretty mad. Are questioning Peak Refs forbidden because it causes the robots to self-reflect? That I would say is what's implied there, for sure. Does CD not feel bad about manipulating Jordy? To me... Alright, so we know CD used to be a Box Peak genius. He is manipulating Jordy for the sake of Box Peak, right? He gave up that life to get someone from Fairboat Island to be good. And so, I don't think he feels bad because that's his goal. Bring in other allies for the live watch next week? Oh, Amanda will be here. yeah, as we wrap up, so I'll tell you all about next week, and we'll do 3 more questions. So next week, I won't even be here for the live premiere of episode 10. We're gonna be in the studio. Amanda will be there. We're going to premiere episode 10. Then we're going to do live commentary. No, we'll save it. So then we'll do a Q&A. We'll do a good chunk of Q&A, maybe an hour. Then we'll do live commentary for episodes 6 through 10. We did live commentary for episodes 1 through 5. You can find those on YouTube. Just look for the Q&A for episode 5. It's really, really fun to have Amanda there. She's got a lot of input. She's got a really nice perspective on these things. You know, I forget a lot of things and don't observe a lot of things. And so it's really, really fun to have her around. And so I hope you'll have a lot of questions. And yeah, we'll do fan art next week for Amanda. Do I have that? I don't have that. Maybe I could add that. 1 second. Let me see if I can. No, well, you don't need to see URL. You know URL if you hear it. Email address. trueart@easyallies.com. If you want to be part of the Box Peak Art Show, send a piece there. Basically, we'll show Amanda. I want Amanda to be really impressed by what people have made. So yeah, send a piece to trueart, TRUEART @easyallies.com. Put your name on it, because all I'll do is drag it from one folder into the other, and then yeah, we can have a little art show for Box Peak, and that would be fun. And so yeah, next week's stream is going to be pretty intense. We'll still start at 11 a.m. And to the person who said, are you going to do a marathon? I think it's redundant. I think I'll ask you to do a marathon on your own, because we're going to do the live commentary on episodes 6 through 10. And basically, I don't want you to get sick of this stuff. What is Big Crush 203, a music band, some corporate thing? Big Crush is the name of one of the Great Islands. Next year's World Tournament is on Big Crush Island. I actually looked at a bunch of like Olympics posters to see like what kind of things they do. And most Olympics posters are visually very simple. They will say like Tokyo 2020 and nothing else, and the rings. That's mostly like what everybody does. And so I tried to think of like what the rings would look like for Box Peak. So it's a box made out of 6 chunks. And so yeah, that's it. That's basically all that is seen on the posters for the World Tournaments. Do you prefer creating alone to deliver a finished product, or do you prefer streaming the creative process, like with Don't Call Me Mama? Great question. With Don't Call Me Mama, which is a Game Boy game that I made, it was really nice to have people in chat who could be very, very helpful. They knew what was going on. Okay. They knew what was going on, and so they could like help me with things like, hey, I don't know how to do this, or like, hey, I need help with this things. There are lots and lots of people who know how to make Box Peak better than what I do. It would be too frustrating for a live audience to be there. It would be way, way too frustrating for me to be working on this thing, and having people being like, hey, actually your focus is a little off. So way, way different kinds of projects for sure. I don't know. I kind of like working in solitude. I kind of like working with no noise. Obviously, I loved streaming. I liked them both. Really funny, dumb thing I just remembered is when I was thinking about like live audience being like, hey, no. Just this morning, the export that I had just done, I watched it on the big TV right in front of me. Once before publishing, going live. I had a thumb in the hotel scene, just a dumb big Kyle thumb that I had not noticed until I watched it on my big TV. And so it's just like, okay, let's do more exports. Truly scary. You gotta crop those thumbs out. Here's what's really funny to me. Here's the questions I'm not looking for. CD is a genius, but he never won a tournament, right? Otherwise, he would be well known. I feel like a lot of the questions today are like, hey, let's poke holes. He never won a tournament. No. um, yeah, I like the, but I mean, Sean saw him play. You know what I mean? So like, I imagine there's something there, but yeah, he's not well known. Is the engineer wearing a Takia shirt? Yeah. That's Takia's logo. That's her claw. That's her like. If you wear that shirt, that's a Takia fan. Going by Jordy's expression when he wins, is there an equivalent to James Bond in the Box Peak world? No. You know how, like, in Pokemon, this is so annoying, like, all the movies they watch are about Pokemon? Like, I imagine it's the same in Box Peak. I imagine that all the movies they watch have some sort of Box Peak element to it. If there even are movies. There's never ever a reference to a movie in this world, so I'm not even sure they have them. Does Kazumi's gun scale to the giant monsters? No, just like Power Rangers. I think you just gotta fight a monster regular size for a little while sometimes. Do I have some kind of document or wiki for the world of Box Peak just for yourself, just to keep track of everything, or do you keep it all in your head? I think I'd had a lot of planning ahead of time. You know what I mean? When I talked about like the timeline that I made, or like the points that Jordy's got, and like, I tried to plot out the world ahead of time, but I didn't reference it too much because while I think those things can be helpful, in like trying to figure out how something works, they can be inhibitive at the same time. And so, yeah, just as we've talked through this conversation, how I don't have an exact year for how old Box Peak is, some of it's ignored for sure. Can you show the scary face with no googly eyes, please? Let me see if I can find it. I can maybe do that for you. If you promise not to get too scared. Okay. All right. Isn't a peak ref engineer being a fan of a specific peaker a conflict of interest? I mean, kind of, but like, think about the NFL. Think about like the people who develop the cameras. That guy's wearing a Cowboys shirt. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not really a conflict of interest. He's not rigging anything. Okay, here we go. Ooh, those are on tighter than I thought. Haha. Here you go. Here you go. Try and stare at that for 4 seconds. I'd lose in an instant, yeah. I'd be able to, not 2 seconds. Oh yeah, that's the rule, right? Is you can't retreat until you've peaked for 2 seconds. And so really people can't stare at that thing for 2 seconds. They can't do it. All right, chat. Let's do 3 more questions. I'm sorry, I saw one earlier that was like, hey, if I have serious production questions, how do I send those to you? And I wonder if I'm the person to send serious production questions to. Because I think that these Q&As are not like, hey, here's how you do it, everybody. It's like, here's how I did this. You know, I would not recommend my techniques to anyone. My audio techniques, bad. Video techniques, bad. Writing techniques, bad, but like pretty good. Did you record all episodes in chronological order? Yep. Mm-hmm. Even like even scenes that I knew would repeat, like Shugi's. And this one, you know, even though I knew we were going to come back to Goldgood Park, I liked to assume that I would be changing my techniques in certain ways. And so I would save it. I would be like, okay, I'll shoot that scene when I need to. There's the shot at the exterior of the Box Peak organization is actually different from the first time you see that shot, because I do the skies differently now. What happened was I did the old shot. I reused the old shot, but when you cut into the office and see through Denise's windows, there's a nice blue sky. And in the old shot, it's kind of like a grayish blue. And I'm like, man, those two shots don't cut together. And so I had to go back to the old BPO, cut it out, and then put that in front of the blue sky. So yeah, I think it pays off to shoot in order, because you get better at things as they go on. Has this whole experience made you never want to do another arts and crafts project again? No, I love arts and crafts. I'll do it all day long. Is Caleb in on his mother's plan to accomplish the 7 of 7 initiative by recruiting Fairboat Islanders, or does he earnestly think that she just wants him to mentor Fair? No, he's in on the plan. He knows he's part of the 7 of 7 initiative. Absolutely. He's not being deceived. Could you see if Ian wants to be part of the Q&A? I feel like the peak ref was such a big part of this season. I could. I like focusing so hard on Amanda, not just because she's Geordie, but also because she helped so much make this show happen. Amanda is like if I'm show's creator, I feel like she would be an executive producer. And so, yeah, I like giving Amanda some spotlight time, to be honest with you. Did you get a different coloring technique? The backgrounds look so much fresher. So definitely I'm using different colors here. Sorry, same exact characters. That backdrop, right? That's watercolor. That's why that, you know, pops. Make it pop. But like this is, you know, the same coloring technique as always. However, I definitely boosted saturation, but also like turned up. We crushed the blacks. Season 2, crushing the blacks. And despite Anton's pleading, I like how it looks. It's a black and white show. That's the thing, is that like you want the ink to be black and the paper to be white, and then everything else in between, you know. No HDR. Do not watch this on an HDR TV. It's gonna look bad. It is only meant to be seen on very small phones. And by the way, Anton did not plead. This is simply me remembering his position on these things back from when he was the editor of Final Bossman, like 5 years ago. But yeah, I mean, I like the look. What can I say? I like the look. Do you remember who came up with Cease This? Me. Give Amanda an EP credit on the final episode. I think that's taking the show too seriously in a weird way. And that's why, I mean, it says Geordie Amanda Troop, her name right after mine, is that like, it's spiritually thanking her, spiritually crediting her. Even in episodes that aren't Geordie strong, it's still like Geordie Amanda Troop. So yeah, there's never going to be an executive producer of Box Peak, basically. Who's my favorite new character from season 2? I like Elvire. I like Elvire Demond. I think he's cool. And he's really like the only like big character, I think, who's not like an offshoot, a one episoder, who's introduced in season 2. You know, he feels like he's part of the show. Dr. Scrapper, though. Dr. Scrapper is very good. What inspired you to make this show? Great question. I wish I still had that thing. So 2.5 years ago. Yeah, a long time ago. Maybe this is probably more than 2.5 years ago. I'm like, I want to do something extra with Easy Allies. I want to make a show. I want to do a thing. But I want to make it a short series. I don't want it to be like I have to make this thing every week. Right? I don't want it to be this like editorial talking head thing where it's week in, week out. I just have to come up with some subject. I want it to be this thing where I just get to tell a story over 8 episodes. And so I was trying to think of like, all right, so do I make it like an animated series? And then I'm like, no, animation's too hard. I can't do an animated series. I can't do that. It's too hard to animate. And it would just, this is an honest thought. I was like, if I do an animated series, it will look worse than the Kind of Funny animated series. And I can't have that. I can't make a show that looks worse than another show. And so I was like, what am I even gonna, I can't do live action stuff because like we don't have a studio. Everything's gonna have to be shot around Jones's garage. You know, you can't shoot stuff outside because that's like illegal. So I can't like use us as actors. So I'm like, okay, what can I possibly do? And so I was visiting home and looking through old art that I made throughout elementary and middle school. Even there was some high school stuff. I'm visiting my parents' home, excuse me. And so my mom had a big basket full of old art. And what's super cool, this is at the very, very bottom of the basket because it's from kindergarten. I had these little puppets. I think only one was left. It was basically a popsicle stick and then a little drawing taped to the popsicle stick. And it was Mickey Mouse, a skinny Mickey Mouse, skinny, tall Mickey Mouse. And I remembered that in kindergarten, I would make those. And then I would ask the class to watch me tell a story. I would ask the class to like gather around and man, one time even, so I did, the only one I remember, I don't even remember what the Mickey Mouse story was. I made like, this was really cool. Sip of coffee. I made Simpsons characters that, like the arcade game, would turn into superheroes. Which I think is only like what Bartman does, but I made like a version for each of the Simpsons characters. And so when you flipped it, it would turn into Bartman. And a friend of mine asked, or I may have asked her because I didn't have enough hands for all the Simpsons characters. I was like, hey, can you do one of these? You remember the story? So I've already told this story. Anyway, it turns out I would just improvise these stories. I would just do these little flipper Simpsons. And my poor friend was like crying afterward because I didn't tell her what her lines were. And I was like, well, you were just supposed to do the story. So I did a whole loop. I did finish the story beginning and end for my little kindergarten class with these paper puppets. Anyway, when I saw that thing and had this memory again, I was like, that's a visual style. That's different, right? It's going to be worse than the Kind of Funny animated series, but it'll be different. And so that's what inspired the show. I thought because I did this thing in kindergarten that this would take a month. I thought this whole thing would take 2 months to do. And that was also part of the inspiration. If when I was making these plans, you told me, Kyle, this is actually, buddy, this could be 2.5 years, I would have said, okay, next idea, please. But, obviously I'm happy to be where I'm at now. Good last question. Thank you, chat. So, do your parents watch Box Peak? Heck yeah. next week is episode 10. Next week is the last episode of Box Peak. We'll be premiering at 11 a.m. Pacific time again. The Q&A session, I'll be joined by Amanda Troop. She's going to have a lot of funny things to say. A lot of insightful things to say. We're going to show Amanda the fan art, the Box Peak fan art. Send that to trueart@easyallies.com. And then we're going to do a live commentary track. And we're going to talk over these episodes. Kind of like how I already do now. But, 3 times more entertaining because Amanda will be there. Is the episode ready to go, or do you still have stuff to finish before next week? I have a lot to finish before we see episode 10. I would say 90% of the episode. It is 10% finished right now. So yeah, there's a lot to do there. Bomwi, 38 months. Will it just be you and Amanda? Most likely. Maybe Jones operating the computer like last time. Throwing in some chips whenever he can, but it might just be the two of us. Cool. Are there any disqualification rules for Box Peak fan art? Yeah, you know what the rules are. Don't be cute. You know what the rules are. Just make nice things for Amanda. If you're all our creeps for Amanda, if you're going to lower this in front of Amanda, no creeps. No really buff CD. Don't be a creep. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I'll be streaming later tonight. 9 p.m. Pacific time. I'll be streaming Garfield Furious Racing. Garfield Kart Furious Racing. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that stream. I might draw a Burning Man. If you want to. I'm not going to tell you not to draw a Burning Man. There's only 3 characters you can draw burning that are acceptable. If you draw a Jordy burning, I won't even include it. If you send me some art that I think is nasty and inappropriate, I won't even put it up. You think I'm obligated to put it up? No. What is your stance on Box Peak crossovers? So, like, if you want to... No. My stance is... If you're about to, like, show Naruto hanging out with Jordy, that's disgusting. Jordy and Doug, don't make me vomit. I'll throw it away. I will not only delete that email, but I will block your email address if you draw Jordy and Doug hanging out. All right, so we'll answer a lot of questions. We'll answer a lot. Chat's got a lot of funny suggestions. Oh my god. Okay, chat. Chat's got to cool off. Chat's got to take a moment. All right. I'll hopefully see you later tonight, and if I don't, hopefully see you next Friday. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out for these Q&As. I know it's just me hanging out in my living room, and yeah, it's cool that we have an hour of people watching this. I appreciate it. I appreciate you supporting BoxSpeak. I appreciate, like, I was so nervous about doing a Q&A after this episode in particular. This episode's so sad to me. You know what I mean? Like, I have bloopers, basically, of PeakRef 12, that scene where it locks in and it goes beep beep. I knocked that thing over like 8 times, and I was like, it's too sad to show this blooper. It is funny out of context, but like, I was like too sad to show that. So yeah, I'm glad we got through this. Appreciate it, everybody. We will miss these. Me too. Okay. All right, that's it for this week. I'm going to mute myself, go wave goodbye, and then we can have a robot party. One last thing, I wanted to apologize if I missed your question. A funny thing about the questions is that the easiest way to get your question answered is to be annoying. And so I feel like just repeat it a bunch of times, right? It just works. And so I feel bad that there's like people who kind of pop in, ask their question once, and it's like, oh, maybe he didn't like my question, and then never repeat it. And so I want to thank everybody who sends a question and apologize if I missed it. That's simply the way that live streaming goes. Okay, I'm muting myself again. Bye, everybody.